Hi everyone, thanks for joining the webinar today with Andrej from Zebra BI. So we're going to start with just a little bit of a kind of background on Power Platform Finance, where we're kind of going with this in our journey, and then going to hand over to Andrej to show us top 10 tips and tricks on Power BI reporting, on building effective financial visualizations in Power BI. So Power Platform Finance is used to be called Power User Days Finance, as we held a few events in London, and Andrej was one of the presenters at our first event in London in July last year. So it's a community for finance professionals, for IT professionals who are working in the finance space to learn more about how Power Platform could be applied to particular finance visuals. There's a bit of a focus on Power BI, and a lot of us are from a kind of Power BI and BI data background, but we're also going to introduce things on here on Power Apps and Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents, indeed, once that becomes a bit more mainstream. So obviously this community, we were planning to hold kind of quarterly events in London, and now it's kind of looked at where we're looking at how we can do this more virtually. So we've held one webinar 2 weeks ago, which Chris presented on row level security using dynamic hierarchies. And then we have got this one in Andrej, and then we've got another one in 2 weeks, and I'll go through some of those next. So before we do that, just a brief introduction to kind of who we are, and I'll let Chris and Naveen introduce themselves. So I'm Rishi Supper, so I'm a senior consultant at Altius. I'm a data platform MVP, so means I'm an evangelist for a lot of the products we use in Microsoft, in particular around data platform and Power BI. Andrej is also an MVP as well on data platform. So Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. So yes, I'm also senior consultant at Altius, background in accountancy, so chartered accountant background. Been using the Power Platform for about 4 years.
Yeah, and Naveen?
I'm working as a financial analyst at a challenger bank, and I've worked with several banks and insurance companies in the city for the last 17 years or so. And I'm very happy to help Rishi and Chris out here.
Great, thanks, Naveen. So just a bit about kind of what we're doing with the community. So powerplatformfinance.com obviously is the main site. So since last time, we've uploaded the video from there, from Chris's session 2 weeks ago. That session really was really great, Chris. Thanks for that. Had a lot of really good feedback on it. There's a blog post coming out soon on column level security that Chris is writing as we speak, or submitted already. And that's because one of the things that came up on that session last time was, well, how could you apply this for column level? So say you had national insurance numbers and it's PII data. So we only want some people to be able to view that PII data. For other people, it should just show masked or non-applicable. So it's not out of the box functionality in Power BI. It's row level security, but Chris shows some ways to potentially get around that. So look out for that coming soon. Once this session is over, we'll also post a recording and any details on there. And actually what we want to try and do with this community is actually build some more engagement and actually give you a space, a forum to be able to ask questions. So what we're going to do is set up a team. So this will be in either Microsoft Teams or in Slack, depending on if we can get Microsoft Teams working for large amounts of external users. So in order to be able to get access to that team, what you would need to be able to do is fill in feedback after this event. So that's the URL there. So if you could just make a note of that and go into your browsers just towards the end of the event or just after the event is finished, and just fill in some quick feedback on this event. And one of the questions on there at the end is, which teams would you like to be set up in? And we're setting up 2 to start with. One is going to be Power Platform Finance General, where we can just ask any questions. And one is going to be on financial reporting, which Andrej will be a member of that team as well. So if you're trying out Zebra BI, for example, and you want to you have some questions about how it works, feel free to ask, and feel free to ask any questions on this in this forum, because the idea is we're all in this journey together. If you're stuck on something, or you're thinking about the best way to visualize some financial data, or how to automate a process, ask in the group, and if we don't know the answer ourselves, we'll definitely be able to help put you in the right direction. And I know a number of people in this community are also experts themselves. So actually, the idea is we are a community. We can help each other. So do please provide that feedback as well. That'd be really helpful for us in planning future events. And as you say, we'll set up teams for that as well, either in Microsoft Teams or in Slack. Next up in the 7th of May, so I haven't done an image for this one yet, but we've got financial reporting using ValQ. So ValQ and XViz are part of a large company that produce a number of custom visuals for Power BI. And also some of their visuals are focused very much around the financial modeling and planning scenarios. So we're going to look at how you can do kind of scenario trees with different modeling and planning and use some of those visuals. So this will be a really interesting one as well. Obviously, we'll post out links and do follow us on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure we post some of those as well. So right, so what we'll do next is pass on now to Andrej. Andrej, if you want to share your screen, and I'll let Andrej introduce himself and introduce the session. Thanks, guys. Any questions, do please reach out to us.
Great. Okay, excellent. So hello everybody. So I'm Andrej of Zebra BI. So I'm the founder of Zebra BI, and I'll try to share a few tricks, tips and tricks on dashboarding, how to create and design professional financial dashboards. I believe in Power BI. I have seen a lot of dashboards in Power BI, and I must say that they tend to be very colorful, and people are inventing a lot of different ways how to present their financial data in Power BI. And there are so many visuals out there, so many ways how to model your data, and so on. So it's quite an interesting community, and there are lots of different solutions out there. So hopefully I'll present maybe a slightly different way how you can do it, and hopefully it'll make sense for all of you guys. All right. So so I'm the founder of Zebra BI. So I'm mostly I'm specialist in data visualization. This is my number one field. I would say I've been a consultant in BI, implementing reporting systems, planning systems, and data visualization tools. So I've worked with for 20 plus years basically. So I worked with OLAP systems, multidimensional OLAP systems back in the day. I was one of the first Tableau resellers actually here in Europe, I guess, back in 2005 or 6. So I've been using lots of different tools, and of course a lot of Excel. So a lot of Excel, but somehow now I ended up in Power BI. So. All right, enough about me. Let's talk dashboards. So this is one dashboard, one Power BI dashboard. I just collected a few random, basically, samples from the internet. They tend to look like this, so they're very colorful, right? So, for example, let me laser pointer. Right, that's better. So this is a kind of a sales dashboard with some profit figures here. For a certain period of time, and it has a geographic presentation here. It has some donut charts, and this sort of a Marimekko chart or a tree map here. Some line charts, and so many different types of charts. You have the breakdowns by by state or province, by product subcategory, the product category, customer segment. So all the breakdowns are there. It's quite a complex presentation of the sales data, right? But if we just step back a little bit and ask ourselves a very simple question. If this is a sales performance for this particular period of time, is my sales performance good or bad? Can you really tell from this picture? It's quite hard, right? I mean, this could be good, this could be bad. I mean, I do see some trends here, but this could be a normal seasonality, right? I don't really know. So I have all of those breakdowns but it's very, very hard to answer this very simple question: is my sales performance good or bad, right? And this is something that a dashboard should reveal in a second, right? Because dashboards are just a means of communication. So you design them, people will read them, and they need to understand them, and they need to get some insight into their data through the dashboard. And once they understand the situation, of course, it should be actionable, right? So you should basically be able to plan certain actions based on this insight, right? But that's not going to be possible if the dashboard does not even answer a simple question: is my sales performance good or bad, right? How good, how bad, right? So the problem here is I don't have any kind of comparisons. I don't know, I don't compare my sales to the target or goal or plan. I'm not comparing it to previous year. I don't have any forecasts. So that's the major problem of this particular dashboard, right? So I can't really say how good, how bad. I mean, is it 30% above the plan, right? We should celebrate, or is it a catastrophe? The 47% below the plan or something like that? Is it on the target? Is it better than last year? How much? And so on. We don't really know, and why. It's also almost impossible to say why. And so what are we going to do about it? I don't know. Pretty picture, but it's kind of not very actionable, right? So most of the dashboards in Power BI that I have seen fall somehow in this category, right? So for example, this is a different one, which I think is more suitable for finance because it has the comparisons, right? So here we do see that, all right, once we need to read the labels, but the blue color is actually its sales. And then the yellow color is like sales prior year. So previous year, prior year, or maybe target, depending on the, I guess, depending on the choice here. So we do have certain comparisons, right? But it's also hard to say, is this now good or bad? I mean, here the numbers are red here, so it's probably not good. But how good, how bad is also very hard to say, actually, right? I have I have the monthly breakdown, but what's the year-to-date value here? All right, it's here. I don't see it in the chart. Well, and in this area, I see a lot of blue and I see a lot of yellow color, right? And no matter what the situation is, like next month or next year, there will always be a lot of blue and a lot of yellow color, right? But in fact, what would be really interesting here is the gap, right? So the gap between the actuals and the targets or the prior year, right? That's quite interesting, right? So we should be able to actually visualize the gaps here, because the focus of my intention should actually be on the variance, right? And how big is it, right? Is it very big, like in May here, or is it is it just a small one, and so on? So these are the typical problems now. How do you present how do you present your data in situations like actual versus target versus previous year? How do you do the proper breakdowns and so on? How do you use, which chart types do you use, right? What is the what's the logic behind? Do you always just use column charts like here, or do you go for a wild option with where every visual is basically a different type of chart, right? So, and I guess the answer is somewhere in between, right? So if you just invent every visual, a different visual for each situation, it does not make sense, right? Because then I need to read everything in order to understand it. There's no consistency in using color, in using different shapes, in using different charts and so on, right? And here we have, on the other hand, here we have more consistency in using color, less colors and so on. But maybe it's a little bit too much, right? because here in this case, I have a line, and I do understand that this line, you know, represents a sort of a trend, right? Line chart should be used for trends, so for time series analysis and presenting time data over time, right? But in this case, I also have exactly the same line, right? But it's not time. So I would assume that this is sort of a trend going down here, but it's not. It's just breakdown by category, right? So this chart is obviously not the right chart in this situation. So actually this chart should be like turned around 90 degrees, and that would be much, much better. And then we would also solve the problem of, you know, the labels being displayed diagonally, which is not a good data visualization practice, right? Because then you need to read the labels like this, and then your neck starts to hurt, right? And if you hate your boss, then okay, but it's not considered a good data visualization practice. So all the labels in a dashboard should actually be presented horizontally. So because that's how we read things, right? How to solve it in this particular case? Let me see. Let me test my mouse painting skills here. So instead of this, right, this chart should actually, the axis of this chart should go like this, right, from top to bottom. So this chart should actually have a vertical axis, and then, you know, the categories should be like this, right, and then all the labels, you know, would just be nicely displayed like this, horizontal, so we can read them, right? And then you have a lot of space, and then, you know, then you can put maybe more charts here, do a comparison here. Somehow I will show you how to do comparisons in a really good way, right? So this is, for example, one very quick rule that I can just give right now. So if it's time, it should go from left to right. So use charts with horizontal axis for time. So monthly development, annual time series, quarterly, date time, timestamps, and so on. Use charts with horizontal axis. For everything else, just put charts, use charts with vertical axis, like bar charts and other charts that have vertical axis. So it's a very, very simple rule. It will probably help solve like 20 to 30% of your data visualization problems. All right, then if we move on, a couple of situations here. So you see, this is a very typical thing. So this is, you know, whenever you see diagonal labels, no, just put them like this and have a chart like this. This is way too much. Way too many colors here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know. I mean, there must be 20 colors here, but I mean, there's even not enough space to display all the categories, right? And this chart just does not tell me anything. I mean, what's now the situation in analytics category? Is it good or bad? I mean, where is it? I cannot match it here, right? It's just completely impossible. So stack charts, quite dangerous. If you're using stacked charts like this, stacked column charts or stacked bar charts, make sure that you only use them when you have very limited number of series that you're presenting in a chart, like 2 or 3 series. For everything else, there are better ways how to do it. This part here, again, way too many colors, right? You can't even read the category names. You know, is this one bigger than something else? How much? It's really hard to say. It's not actionable. It takes a lot of space actually, and a lot of color, but you know, you just can't understand what those numbers really mean, right? What has happened? What is the story? What do these numbers? What are these numbers telling me, right? All right. So yeah, and then also the the presentations of KPIs. Of course, you're always working with a lot of KPIs, important KPIs, but how to present them, right? So this is also a popular way. Using gauges. But for example, this particular place here again, the problem is, is this good or bad? It's really hard. I mean, you see it. Okay, this bar is less than the line here, right? But my attention is on this yellow color and this yellow color and so on. And whereas what is really important is again this gap here. Is this big? Is it not big? How much is it, right? So if this is 470 something K and this is 42K, so it's like 70,000 of something for this product, right? And then we go here and there's even a bigger gap. Oh, wrong. Oh no, that's bad, right? But then you read the label. This is 49K and this is 400K, right? So this is 10 times worse, right? And I don't understand this from the data visualization, right? Because why? Because there's no scaling concept. So these are just these are just completely separate, independent visuals, just placed on a dashboard. And because there's no scaling concept, I don't understand the extent of the changes, the importance of certain numbers. They are not placed in context. So these are the typical problems that I have seen in the Power BI, community and with our clients and while working on projects and so on. So I just couple to warm up the discussion. All right. So maybe now if I present a completely different concept, right, which uses much less colors, so maybe it looks boring in the beginning, but for example, if I ask you here, is my performance good or bad? You see, I do have sales versus plan. I can read it. My sales is 22.1 million. And you see this little red rectangle here. We are minus 1.1 million below the plan, right? 1.1 million below the plan. So obviously, my performance is not good. It's not completely good, right? And how good, how bad? I know exactly 1.1 million, right? I could also have the percentage, variance here. And why? Okay, why? That's always the next question. Why? Yeah, I can find the answer, right? So I do see some red bars, they stick out here. So obviously this product category is problematic. This is a retail chain, so it's like women's clothing. Is obviously way below the plan, right? Actually 32%. So you see, I have a very simple chart. As I have explained, it is presented with a vertical axis. This chart is sorted, so I do understand that this is the most important element. It's on the top, second most important, and so on, right? But I don't just have a simple bar chart. I also have the variances, all right? So, and this is what makes it actionable, right? Because in this period, one category sticks out, and then we'll try to plan certain actions, and then in the next period maybe something else will stick out, and so on, right? So my attention will be on the gaps, right? And this is quite important if you want to make your dashboards and reports in Power BI actionable. All right, and this also, it's easier to understand because I'm using less colors. There are not there are less problems with assigning colors for different categories and so on. In most of the time, you don't really need different colors. Why would I color certain bars with a different color than other bars? It does not really add any. It does not add to the understanding, right? What is important are the variances here. And then if I look at this part here, this is a waterfall chart. This was my plan. So you see, this is 22.1 million. This is this. This is actually 4.7% below the plan. And I see for each month, which were the good month. And so on, right? And yeah, and then there's this is the actual. So that's why I'm using a solid column here. So just dark gray or dark blue or something like that, or blue. But here, because this is a plan, I'm using a slightly different notation. So the idea here is use the same notation for the same meaning. So same colors and same shapes for the same meaning. And if it's a different meaning, use a different shape. But always do it consistently. Always do it in exactly the same way. So, for example, the red and green bars here, they always mean absolute variance. All right. Whereas if it's and this is the absolute variance. So this would be like in millions or in K, right? So in this case it's millions, right? But here I have the percentage, right? Percentage is a completely different thing, right? It's a smaller number. It's a percentage. So that's why I'm using a different type of chart, but I'm still using simple red and green concept for good and bad, right? So whenever I see this shape, I see this chart, I understand that I'm looking at percentages, right? And it does not matter, it could be like a vertical chart, bar chart, or it could be a column chart, or like a column chart here. You see, again, this is the actual, this is the variance, right? And here again, this is the actual, these are the absolute variances, and this is again the relative variance on the top. Same shape, only rotated for 90 degrees, right? And if it's a plan, then it looks differently, right? So plan is not the same as actuals, right? So we always do it. We present it with a border here, so it has an outline, because we sort of a plan is sort of like an outline for the next year, and then you somehow need to fill it up with your actuals, right? So it's a kind of an intuitive concept to distinguish between plan, basic business scenarios that you always have in business reporting and in financial reporting. You always have the prior year, the actuals, certain forecasts and plan, right? So these are most basic scenarios in financial reporting, right? So we do have a standard notation for the plan and for actual and so on, right? So I'm actually not inventing this style of reporting and this notation that I'm describing right now. This is actually it's actually a standard that more and more companies all over the world are using. It's called the IBCS, which stands for International Business Communication. So International Business Communication Standards, IBCS. And it's a standard that's out there actually for more than 15 years. It's been used it's been implemented in Excel mostly back in the day, but now we also have it in Power BI because Zebra BI custom visuals are actually implementing this standard, right?
Sorry, Andrej, do you
Yep.
want to take questions now or at the end, or?
Yeah, if there are some questions, just
Sure.
interrupt me and just let me know. Sure.
Sure. So we've got a question on how do you keep the sorting aligned between each visual?
That's a very good question. These are not separate visuals. So I will explain. There are a couple of ways, now how you can do it. Now, if you try to implement this with Power BI, it's I would say like 80% of this is not possible with native Power BI charts, right? So like the difference highlights here, and how do you do that, right? How do you align them and so on? I mean, you can align visuals more or less, right? But the problem is also the scaling, right? So here the amount of red color here is exactly scaled. So if this is 600 here, right? It almost the length of this bar matches the length of this bar. So that I understand that this is almost like here. You see, it's almost like half of the actuals in the women's category, right? So this is exactly scaled. So this chart is not a completely. This chart here is not a separate chart in Power BI, but it's actually just a part of a visual which goes like this. So it's just this whole thing is just one visual. So I'll show how it works so you'll understand. But great. Yeah, otherwise it's really hard to align. You can align the outside dimensions of a visual in Power BI, but there's no concept in Power BI to synchronize data between the visuals. So there's absolutely no concept in Power BI for this. You can try to do it with very complex DAX, and some chart tricks in Power BI maybe to bring certain maximum values into it, but it's really, really hard.
Yeah, so you can put in you can put a number for the axes to start from, right, in Power BI. So you can say I want to start from 1,000 or 1,000,000 or something. But you can't dynamically define that as a measure.
Yeah, that's the problem. You can't do that dynamically. That's a problem. And it should be dynamically, because you can change a slicer somewhere, and then you'll go from a total of a company where you have millions down to certain detail, to a business unit or to a product, right? Well, you'll just have thousands, right? So, and then it won't work. So
I mean, most of that scaling should update with Power BI, I guess, right? But yeah, understandably, that's sometimes between visuals. To sync them between visuals can be a little bit tricky. As Andrej was saying, the only other thing you can do is kind of have a DAX measure in your measure that you're using on the graph. You can say if the value is less than this, then show blank. Otherwise, show the value, and then it will not show those values. So that's
exactly. That's exactly the way how you do it, and then you need to bring the maximum, the same maximum into several visuals, right? And then you also need to plan, which measures does and which categories. The scope of the measure. So it needs to be written exactly for this page, right? And then if you have a lot of pages, then you need to just add a lot of, DAX measures just to support the data visualization, right? So, but that's the way how you do it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why these visuals are really good, like the ZBI visuals. There's things like that it can actually, because it's all built into the same thing, and as you say, it's all one kind of visual with different views. You're able to achieve that synchronization. The other question is, how do you create the minus 4.7% label in the waterfall? So in the waterfall chart you've got the labels. How do you show that label?
Yeah. I'll do a demo. So I'll do a demo right now. So I'll show it. All right. Cool. So just to that's kind of the idea. That's how I believe you can make your dashboards understandable and actionable, right? So let me show you a few demos, right? So this is now a sales dashboard. I have a couple of demos. So I have a sales dashboard, I have P&Ls, I have certain financial demos, right? So I'll just try to present a few options here, a few different examples. So this is a sales demo with actual versus previous year and actual versus plan, right? So it's I would say it's a very standard sales data set. And this is a landing page. So this is the first page in my dashboard, which has a few features now. So the first page that you're building for your users, you know, should somehow should bring the most important information on the first page. So, you know, you should have certain KPIs compared to plan, compared to previous year. There are lots of ways how you do it. This is just one very, very simple way. So this is a very basic, I would say, it's a very, very simplified example. But basically, you know, you have some KPIs and then around the KPIs. So for example, if the actual revenue versus plan is 0.6%. Wow, so we are almost right on target, right? So, right on plan, so a little bit above the plan, right? Then, you know, then you provide context around it, right? So now I'm interested in, all right, well, this is okay, right? So this is, you know, it's okay. It's not really very interesting. Just we are on the plan, right? But then, you know, I can switch. Maybe I can switch to a different KPI, like gross profit. Oh, here I have a different situation. You see, it's very good growth from previous year, but obviously the plan was very ambitious, like it's always. And yeah, we are 4.1% below the plan, right? So for gross profit, right? And now, so, you know, is this good or bad? It's bad. How good? 4.1%. Why? The next question, why? And now you need to answer this on the same page, right? You know, whenever user sees certain variance, you need to make sure that, you know, the first question, why, will be answered somewhere around this visual. Right, so this is a nice concept. So just, you know, put the most important product, you know, category breakdowns around this. So minus 4.1. Oh, you see again the same thing here. Oh, it's the mobile business unit in this case, right? So it's the mobile business unit mostly, and also there are some others, right? But this one is problematic. And then, all right, and then you need to go deeper. All right, what's going on within the mobile business users? Because again, why do we have a problem in mobile, right? And then, you know, you can do it again with, for example, either with a report page tooltip. So I think the report page tooltip is a really nice way to explain certain variances, right? So that will be definitely one of my tips, right? Use report page tooltips to explain your variances. So, you know, here I see in the tooltip, all right, Canada, United States, Germany, these are the problematic countries, right? And in this tooltip, I'm not showing all the countries. Maybe we are selling to 70 or 100 countries, you know, you don't have the space to present all that on the first page. Maybe you'll do it in a detailed report later on. I'll show you how, but, you know, on the first page, on the landing page, just keep it short. So make use of top-end functionality, right? So Power BI has certain filters, top filters, so you can try to use that, but unfortunately, again, it's very limited. So maybe you can write a measure that, you know, returns top elements and so on. But what I'm using here again, I'm again using Zebra BI functionality here that actually has top-end function just built in, right? So, and it's not just top-end. So for example, if I go to baby care business unit, you see now I get the most positive one. So actually what I have here is top plus bottom element. So I'm always showing like top 6 or top 7 elements that are either have the biggest variance or, you know, the most negative variance. Right, and then it depends on the situation in each row, and it will just change. Sometimes it will take the top ones, sometimes the bottom ones, and then everything else is automatically calculated in the others category. So if you see in the tooltip, you always have the others, right? So then when you just add up top 6 plus others, you get the total. You know, you get those 21, actually it's 20.5, the total here, right? So this is use the report page tooltips. on the landing page. Also use the top N plus others you see on the landing page, because you may have a lot of product categories and so on. The landing page, the first page, is not the place where you would provide all the details on the first page. But how do you do this? How do you provide really good details? So now, for example, all right, understand now the situation in mobile. Why is it bad? Something going on in Canada, United States, and so on. But I still need more detail, right? So what do you do now? Now you need to provide a good way for the people to get to the detail, right? To get to the detail. And a good way means do not use a lot of slicers around the visual, right? So if you see here in my, around the page, right? On my dashboard page, I don't have a lot of slicers. I do not, right? Because the best slicer in Power BI is a visual, right? You can click on a mobile, right? You can click on a mobile, and then you'll understand, all right, what's the situation, what's the monthly trend for mobile? What are the top and bottom products within the mobile unit? I already understand this just by simply clicking here, right? So I don't need another slicer for the, the business units to do that, right? So just try to put them here, and then on top of that, you have a couple of more options. Definitely the drill down. So drill down, use drill down. Sorry, not drill down. You could use drill down, but also drill through, right? Drill through is really good, feature for the first page. So when I click on the mobile, you see I get this new button that was actually hidden in the beginning. So for example, right now it's a situation, I'm just observing, oh, mobile, my attention is here. I click, and now I see this button, oh, drill the mobile business unit by country. And when I follow this link, I just one click, and with one click, I get now to the detailed report. All right. So this report on the second level, once you go from a landing page to a detailed report, here you can go crazy. Here you could provide a hierarchical table with 4 or 5 levels of details for people to drill down and so on, and design this in a several different ways. Like now I understand that within the mobile business unit, I have 2 major product categories like smartphones and tablets. I can click on the smartphones, and then I get the the details by country for smartphones. Here, for example, I'm using the dynamic title. There's a way in Power BI, so this just show you quickly, because just the transparency of the filtering is, I think, also a problem in Power BI, because once you click, a lot of times you don't really know, many end users don't really know, well, okay, what am I looking at the moment, right? But you see here, if I click on the tablets, the title here will change, and if you click on our smartphones, the title here will change, and that's a standard Power BI functionality. So if you go, every visual in Power BI has in the title, you have this little, let me zoom in. So you see this little 3-dot menu here. If you click on it, you have an option for conditional formatting. So this is also one of the tricks that I definitely recommend using. So now you can actually enter a field, like a measure, a DAX measure that will be used for the title, and then you make sure in the DAX measure that you dynamically return the right selections, right, in the DAX measure. So for example, I just created a measure called selected business unit. This is a very simple example that I guess is not very hard to do, and somewhere I have, not sure, probably within the business units. So this is my typical business units. It has certain structure, but then I also have these measures like selected business unit. If I click on it, it's a basically it would be just a simple, DAX, like a selected value, what is selected, right? But then I I wrapped it into some if statements because it depends. I'm using this in different. You can have multiple levels, and then you maybe need to make it a little bit more complex to cover other scenarios. But that's the idea, right? So now I'm on this detailed page, and now I will just go back with a button. So this is a button here that goes back, and now I'm back, right? And then, you know, so this is now the basic interaction from the landing page to the detailed report, and you just need to, you know, so you see, now I went into my business units. So if I go back on my dashboard, I don't have a lot of buttons here. I'm overlaying buttons on the content, because the idea on the landing page is, you know, for people to sort of navigate through the landing page into the detail. So I think that's a really good practice, right? And because these are my business units, like groups of business units, you know, so my attention is here, and if I want to drill into the details, see, you know, more reports for business units, now I can just hover with my mouse and I see this button, right? How did I do this? This is a very simple button in Power BI. So for example, if I just select this, you know, this is a normal button. So you just do it by inserting a button, you know, just maybe a blank button, and then just make sure that it's, you know, transparent. So this button here, you know, it does not have, like the background is turned off, you know, so basically everything is turned off so that it's completely invisible. And then you can just simply do certain tricks, like, you know, when user goes with hovers with his mouse over the button, you know, something will change. Like, for example, I just put the fill here. So once you have the button, you know, you can design here. How does it look like? How does the button look like in the default state, like normal state? And you see, it just, in my case, I just put transparency to 100%, so it's completely invisible. But then you open this, and then you have two more states, like on hover. So when the user is with his mouse over the button, you know what happens. So slightly yellow, you know, 90% transparency. And then you have the third state is on press. So how does the button look like once I click on the button, right? So you design the buttons like this, and you can do this for fill. You can do this for text, you know, like in my case, the button has no text at the beginning, but when I go with my mouse over the button, this text will appear like, oh, all right, now you're here, click for business units report. All right. Okay, so this is like the buttons is my next tip, you know, use the buttons, but not just put them, you know, on the top somewhere completely. You can even do it here. So then user will go, and now we are again in this detailed mode. Now, these are buttons here. So now I have like 4 pages, four pages for my business units, right? I have certain actual versus plan, all right, you know, and this is now the place where you do the drill downs, like you see this, you know, here you can do a hierarchical table, you know, with lots of comparisons so that people will actually understand, go deep, drill down into details and so on. They can click here and they will get, you know, some details here in the chart. Again, the dynamic titles here you see, you know, or, you know, they will click and, you know, understand what's going on for every product, every business unit, and so on, right? Now this part here on this page, these are normal Power BI slicers. So this is also one thing that I recommend. So buttons versus slicers in Power BI. The buttons, I would use buttons mostly for page navigation. So, all right, I click here and this will take me to another page. or I click here and this will take me back to my homepage, right? These are all buttons in Power BI, and you just insert a button here and then you design the action. So once you click on a button, you have the action here, and then, you know, just use the page navigation and then select the page. All right, where does this button lead me to, right? To another page. For everything else, try to use slicers, normal slicers in Power BI. So for example, here I showed you how you can dynamically change a KPI. So from gross profit to revenue. And now the content in all of my visuals has changed. Why? And I did not use buttons for that, right? There are no buttons and there are no bookmarks to achieve this, right? Most of the time when I see people do that, they use bookmarks. So basically they have one chart for revenue, right? And then this chart would have like revenue measures inside. And then when you change here, you know, this chart for the revenue would be hidden, and then another visual will be visible, and that visual would have the gross profit, right? So what I recommend instead of that can lead to very messy dashboards with a lot of hidden elements that are really, really hard to maintain and improve in the future. And, you know, they can just become a complete nightmare. And especially if if somebody else needs to then maintain them after you design them, right? So instead of that, use slicers and use DAX tricks, right? So for example, here, my measure is just called the actual, right? And it's simply this measure. Of course, now this measure becomes a little bit more complex, because now my measure that is used in this chart needs to evaluate, what is selected in those charts, right? So for example, I can switch from month to year to date. You see, and now everything just changes, right? So this visual changes and this visual changes because I simply have a measure here that will evaluate what is selected, and then you basically use switch statements in your DAX based on the selected element. It would either return my sales, or will return year-to-date sales, right? If it's this one, and then I have another switch statement to check which KPI is selected, and then based on this selection, I simply return revenue or return gross profit. Okay, I have step-by-step instructions for this. I will share all the resources, how you do all of those tricks in the end. I will share all the links with step by step. Yeah.
I'm just conscious of time. We've got a few minutes left.
Cool.
That's okay.
All right.
Yeah, and actually calculation groups will be really good for that when it comes out as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
calculation groups are already, calculation groups will do exactly things like this. They're already, they're already available in the analysis services, and they will come to, they're coming to Power BI desktop as well. Actually, there's already a workaround right now that you can use for calculation groups in Power BI desktop with external tools, right? Yeah.
Also, we've got a question on how long it took you to develop this dashboard, or at least the landing page.
Yeah, like a page like that, that's a great question. Yeah, for me, it's very easy. So the landing page took me a lot of time. But like a page like I did before, it's quite easy, because I'll show you, because I'm using Zebra BI Visuals. So this is now where Zebra BI Visuals can help you be really productive. So for example, I had I had actual versus previous year, broken down by group. Hierarchy. I just put the whole hierarchy inside, you see, and I already have I have the actual, I have the previous year, I have the variance the previous year, I have the variance in percent. So this is already working for me, you see. So this is one visual. Then, then of course you need certain slicers, like of course the year probably. Where's my calendar? So now I would take like the year, turn it into a slicer like that. I would use just a normal drop down here. So now it's 2018. All right, then I need a monthly versus year-to-date switch. Let's find it. I have a period calculation here. So I have a little table. I call it a switch table. It's a disconnected table in my Power BI model that I can simply use for that. So I was just change the style of this slicer. Sorry, first the slicer, and I'll just make it horizontal. And this is it. And then I need the month, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
the slicer.
That's really useful actually, yeah, because showing how to get the disconnected tables to be able to connect into
exactly.
Into those.
And now you see now it's month, August, and now year to date. It's already working. So it's, I'm done. And then some time trends. Just throw some time trends, actual versus previous year. Split this by month. Now this one, the month slicer is also filtering this one. So sometimes you will need to adjust your interactions, the way how you do it in Power BI, just edit interactions, make sure, that the slicer to control, that you have control which elements are controlled by certain slicers. So this would be, so see, this is already, it's like this. This would be like a waterfall chart, and now the Zebra BI is doing everything else, like year-over-year variance. I can click and have the absolute variance, this variance. I can have this kind of chart. This is better for year-to-date results, or this chart like this, or a line chart. This is also nice for this.
So we've got one other question as well from for drill, by country drill. And other for tooltip. Do you use it to put everything there for use later, drill and tooltip? So I think it's the hidden page, yeah.
Oh yeah. I have a couple of hidden pages. Yeah, exactly. I have a hidden page for drill, and so this is the page that I showed before, for drill through. And I just designed a completely separate page for this. And typically I would have the tooltip pages also hidden somewhere. So for example, this is another hidden page, and this is again a Zebra BI visual. It's a small tooltip. These are typically, I would hide the pages for this, right? And this is again a Zebra BI visual with top and bottom, right? Because you may have many countries. So if you're using Zebra BI, make sure to check the top and bottom. This is really awesome because, typically people, in a tooltip, you just can't show all the countries and all the elements. And, some of them are really important, like the really good ones. These are above the plan. And then also the one on the at the bottom, right? And everything else in between is boring, no change, right? So it's boring. So you can use top plus bottom and well.
That's a great feature, Andrej.
Yeah.
You need to tell Microsoft to put that into Power BI.
So that's a really nice one, right? And +6, and then you have the others, and then you have the total, right? So you just control the total here. It's good to have others and the total so that you understand how do they stack up. And if sometimes you may have something important in the others as well, right? So it's good that you have it always as a separate row, right? So this is unfortunately only possible in Zebra BI. With native Power BI, you can only use the normal filter. So you can do top 5, but not top and bottom, and you don't have the others. But you can do at least top 5, for example, right?
Yeah. And with the waterfalls as well, like to get the waterfalls working like this in Power BI, you have to do quite a lot of trickery.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's yeah. You do have a basic waterfall chart in Power BI, but it would not do this. It would not do this.
Even just to get it to work how I thought at least the waterfall chart should work. You have to really think
it's quite tricky. Yeah, it's quite tricky, and the settings are here. And then there are more important things, like for example the like the small multiples, right? Which is really analytics, because this is where you actually start. Now, if this is for a whole company, right? You need to have this analytic power to break it down. So for example, if I put my business units, sorry, this was the hard key. I'll just put the group here. So a group of business units here. You see, now it's not just one waterfall chart, right? Because I have a lot of business units. You see, now I have baby care, wearable. I have all of the business units in one page. So understand, all right, 2.5 million here. What's the growth rate? 15.7, 14.3, all dandy here, but here the audio is going down. And you understand the scaling, you see? This is what is missing in Power BI. There's no concept between the visuals, and that's why in Zebra BI we render more charts within the same visual, which is also much faster, because in terms of optimization, because there's only one query, right? So the visual just needs to be loaded once. If you put a lot of charts on a Power BI page, native charts, native visuals, or whatever visuals, it will always be quite slow. So that's the advantage. Only one visual, and then it works with cross filtering and everything else, like electronics division, personal care, different business units. It's all scaled and so on. So
yep, and top end, bottom end is another good way to improve performance, because it doesn't load everything. So if you have a table that's got thousands of items in there, it actually has to return a query that's going to return thousands of rows in order to display it, even if then on the first view you have to scroll down. And there's no point in that. You might as well just show a table with the top end, especially for something like a report tooltip. But no, thanks, Andrej. Those are really great tips, and hopefully everyone can kind of see why I'm so excited about Zebra BI visuals now. And I've been
it's a combination. Yeah, it's a combination. I mean, it's the visuals, and also how to use the tricks so that you don't overdo it and so on. So I think a few best practices in Power BI and the visuals. I think it's the combination of both, and then you're good. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, for things like waterfall as well, I put in that income statement report that I built a while ago that I used for the kind of community events. I put a link to it, to the blog post in the chat. That's a way that you can kind of go through those and see how we do waterfall charts. So there's a couple of next month, I think we're going to go through hands workshop for building stuff out. So and then I think this would be really good to do another one, kind of maybe hands-on workshop for Zebra BI. So we can get Zebra BI installed, and maybe have a smaller group and start to just build stuff out, and see where we
can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Sure. There are lots of details. Yeah, I mean, now you mentioned the P&Ls, income statements. That's quite a challenge in Power BI actually. So this is where Zebra BI is actually the strongest, because you have like things like row level, subtotals. Just say, all right, this is a result here. It's a subtotal. You can invert cost elements and just stuff that Power BI was not built for, right? And then have everything in one visual. So also the common size measures, like % of revenue that you can edit inside reshuffle the columns, just that you're really quick in building this stuff.
Yeah, and to be fair, so one of the main advantages of this is the users can do this as well. So in the visual, as you're consuming it, you can change the view. So different people want to see the data in slightly different ways. They might want to see a slightly different chart. And this is what Microsoft have been doing with Power BI as well, with with Q&A and things like that. And also they've shown in MBAS last year that they want to show and bring more personalization into Power BI. So Zebra BI is obviously a bit ahead of the curve on that. So this is definitely where where analytics is going in terms of being able to give those consumers, the end consumers, you know, a bit more control over how they view visuals and stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I didn't want to do a sales pitch or even show features of Zebra BI. Of course, we can do this. We can do this in a separate, maybe for people who are interested. I have to say that the basic version of Zebra BI is free and it's available on the app stores, right? So you can just go ahead and download it. And for example, the waterfall chart. So you will get the basic charts and like the variances out of the box and so on. So the basic version is completely free. But then like additional settings, for additional settings, we have a pro license. Then it's a paid visual, right? So it's a freemium visual. The basic version is free, but then for the pro version, you need to get a license. We charge for it. That's what we do actually. So we just develop the visuals. That's where our revenue comes from. So.
Yeah. So let's, as I said, I think what'd be really good is maybe if we do a hands-on workshop session, if people think that would be useful, put that in the feedback form. So, you know, put in the feedback form. One of the options there is what do you want to see next, and you know, where should we focus on future events. So by all means, you know, put hands-on workshops, and we can cover stuff like this as well. So if that link is there in the chat, tinyurl.com/ppf capitals feedback. I'll put it in there again just in case. Do please fill that in. I put a link to, if anyone's studying for the DA100 exam, or wants to study for the DA100 exam, which is the new Power BI exam. It used to be 17778. They've now come up with a new one, which is a beta. Then I've got some quizzes to help with that as well. So I've put that in the chat in case anyone is interested in that. I'm conscious we're a little bit over actually already. So do we have any last questions? And if it's quicker, obviously feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Ah, cool, nice. Yep, so this is how you import it.
Sorry,
Yep. Nope, I don't think we've got no other questions.
Sorry, Rishi, quick one. Will this PBIX file and the data files be shared, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I can share it. Actually, I have it somewhere online already. Let me just check. So if you follow these links, actually, let me copy the link. Let me copy the link.
I can type it into here if you want.
Just try to make a quick copy and paste. So, for example, here, this is our web. This is a portion of our website. I just click on it just to show you, because I have the PBIX files here. Well, you see the DAX, you'll see the buttons and everything else. So this is the actual link with all the files, most of the files. So for example, this is the sales dashboard that I was demonstrating, but we also have the income statements. The income statements here, and you have the download buttons here. So you can download if you're more completely from finance, like income statements. This is also a very, very nice financial example, I would say. Here it uses a lot of waterfall charts, so this is a really nice one. You can also download this one from the same page, right? It has like different types of ABDAs, and then you have the month to date, year to date, and full year period calculations implemented inside, and then they are used in the same visual. This is all just one visual, just grouped tables, and it has forecasts. So this is a nice financial one, I would say. And this is the link.
You've got consolidated financial statements in there. So you've got income statement, balance sheet, cash flow.
This is more these are more like selected financial KPIs,
Right.
Selected financial KPIs, but this one is about income statements, right? So this one has like EBITDA and other financials, like you see net revenue, EBITDA, free cash flow, capex, and so on. And it's mostly about, again, it uses this DAX tricks for monthly, year to date, and so on. And it has forecasts, right? Try to use forecasts forecasts. That's also chronically missing from Power BI reports. Always just reporting, for the past, never, what's going to happen until end of year, right? And that's important, right? If you are here in April, right? What will happen until the end of year? Yeah, you do have the budget for the end of year, right? So the monthly reporting is actually, it's supposed to guide you through the to the end year budget, right? So if you have monthly forecast until the end of year, these are really nice displays here. Then actual versus plan, and then for the rest of the year you have forecast versus plan, and then you have the full year forecast, and this is a plan, so you understand how you'll end up here. So this is also a nice report, I would say, for finance. Some nice ideas here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, forecasting, you can start to get into some of the data science aspects of Power BI as well. So again, it's an area that Microsoft invested a huge amount in.
Yeah,
it's a whole new area, but yeah, absolutely. You've got R and Python visuals to be able to do that, or R and Python scripts you can connect to in Power BI, or do them in the query editor. You've also got built-in functionality AI visuals within Power BI. You've got, when you do data flows, you've got the capability to add a machine learning model to those on Premium. So yeah, lots of things you can start to do around this space as well. And over the course of these webinars and things, we'll try and cover as many of those as we can, actually. Specifically around the finance space, because I think it's really interesting. Great, thanks so much, Andrej. I think we've taken over a little bit more time than we expected, but it's been absolutely worth it. Really great tips. And yeah, what we'll try and do as well is set up a community Teams channel for us, a Teams team or a Slack team, and then we can continue the conversations there, because there's so much to go through, there's so much to learn, and we're all on this journey. So let's do that. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll post up the recording on powerplatformfinance.com soon, along with the one for a couple of weeks' time. And please attend if you can. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Cool. Thanks guys. Ed. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for having me. Bye. Bye, Rishi.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.